Um, with the presence, therefore, of at least one senator, we are past that, the chair declares a quorum and hereby call on the committee secretary, Clea Nava, to acknowledge the presence of our resource persons.
Good afternoon. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Secretary Enrique Manalo from the Department of Foreign Affairs, together with Undersecretary Maria Teresa Lazaro, Bilateral Relations and ASEAN Affairs, Deputy Assistant Secretary Gunter Sales, Office of American Affairs. From the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we have Colonel Rolando Escalona Jr., Chief Legal Affairs Division. From the Bureau of Immigration, we have Commissioner Norman Tansinco. From the Department of Education, we have Undersecretary Michael Wesley Powa. From the Department of National Defense, we have Secretary Gilbert Chodoro Jr., Undersecretary Angelito De Leon Jr., Lieutenant General Reneo Espino, Assistant Secretary Pablo Lorenzo, Strategic Assessment International Affairs. From the Department of Justice, we have Attorney Dennis Arvin Chan, Chief State Counsel. From the National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, we have Deputy Director Jose Justo Yap, Assistant Director Glenn Ricarte, and Senior Agent Darcy Binayan, Senior Inspector Terence Lamaste. From the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, we have Lieutenant General Ricardo De Leon, and Mr. Theodore Libardo, Assistant Director General. From the National Security Council, we have Major General Nestor Jerico. From the Philippine National Police, we have Acting Director for Operation Philippine National Police, Brigadier General Leo Francisco. And also we have Police Brigadier General Ronald O. Lee, Deputy Director for Intelligence. Also from the PNP, we have Police Colonel Rainiel Balones. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez. Additional guest from the AFP, Colonel Maria Cristino O. Basco from the Philippine Air Force. That's all.
Yes, thank you very much, and most especially to Ambassador Grace Romualdez. What time is it in Washington?
It's 1:12 in the morning.
Okay. Thank you very much. Get yourself to stay awake, babes. Senator Estrada wishes to be recognized. He's online already as well. Thank you, and Minority Leader. The agenda for today's public hearing is the proposed temporary housing in the Philippines of special immigrant visa applicants from Afghanistan. The general inquiry on the proposed temporary housing is in accordance with the powers and jurisdiction of the Committee on Foreign Relations under Rule 10, Section 13, Paragraph 18 of the Rules of the Senate in relation to Senate Resolution 5, otherwise known as the Rules of Procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation. The Minority Leader is an expert on Senate procedure, and I just wanted to make clear why we are conducting motu proprio a hearing during the period of recess, during the rule aforementioned. So, if I may then call on the Legislative Committee Secretary to administer the oath to the resource persons, unless the Minority Leader would like to make a comment, or Senator Jinggoy would have an opening statement. Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, congratulations and Thank you for holding this hearing so that we will get to know more about this issue. So we are doing this in accordance with our
Please
rules.
like lang po natin mga
I will just be here
ka-Chansky.
to represent the minority and to listen and observe, Madam Chairperson. So thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Senator Estrada, I see you on video. Is there an opening statement, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, to our chairperson, Senator Ivy Marcos, distinguished colleagues in the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to everybody. I laud the chairperson of this committee for bringing the public's attention to this very important subject and for immediately calling for this hearing that we hope will clarify many of our concerns with regard to allowing Afghan nationals into our country at the request of the United States. On the provision of temporary housing for foreign nationals, we are facing a housing
Like and share lang po natin
of
mga
around
ka-Chansky.
6.5 million in our own backyard. Shouldn't we prioritize the needs of our fellow men first? Given our housing backlog and the rising cost of living, shouldn't our limited resources be focused on taking care of our own? What is the fiscal implication of providing
Non-study,
temporary housing to these
ano
foreign
po ito?
nationals?
Hearing po ito tungkol sa mga Afghanistan refugee na gustong tanggapin ng ating bansa regarding sa provisions ng isa sa mga pinagpipilitan ng mga US.
The chairman of our Defense Committee here in the Senate, Jinggoy Estrada. And with that,
Paki-like and share lang po.
the chronological order, as we understand it, for the concise and orderly narration of facts. In a news article by a Philippine news agency, Ambassador Romualdez confirmed that the U.S. made a request sometime in October of 2022 for the Philippines to temporarily house the Afghan special immigrant visa applicants. Ambassador Romualdez, you maintained that there was no secret to the U.S. proposal to allow the entry and temporary housing of the nationals from Afghanistan. May we know how the request was made? Was it merely a verbal order? Or is
Tinatanong ng pangbansang ate kung saan nang galing ang request, kung ito ba ay verbal lang o kung ito ba ay
Good
mayroong
afternoon, Madam Chair.
formal letter
Good
request.
afternoon to everyone. Yes, there was a formal request that we received at the embassy, and I hope that we will be able to produce that request.
Nagsasalita ngayon si Ambassador Romualdez.
With us through the State Department, whether this is possible for us to consider. And so we immediately sent this request to the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the Secretary and I spoke about it briefly, and he said that he was
Malinaw na
study
tinanong ng ating pambansang ate kung ang request ba ng pagtanggap ng mga refugees ay may maayos na formal request or verbal lang at kanino nang galing ang request.
From Washington, D.C. Embassy is that the DFA actually was in receipt of a formal request. Is that the case?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Secretary. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yes, in October 22, as relayed by Ambassador Romualdez, we received a concept note from the U.S. government, a request for the Philippines to allow Afghans formerly employed.
What sort of note, please, Secretary? Concept note, okay. But it was written, in fact.
Yes. And the idea was to allow Afghans formerly employed by the U.S. government and their qualified dependents to temporarily stay in the Philippines to process their SIP applications with the U.S. Embassy in Manila. So we immediately launched informal consultations. We launched consultations with relevant Philippine agencies in order to have to study the concept note and assess the request.
The ambassador says that thereafter the State Department also reiterated the request directly to the DFA. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. In fact, the Secretary of State directly raised this with me on a few occasions verbally, and also in a letter, which I'd be happy to provide later. And in fact, President Biden also quickly raised the issue with President Marcos during the visit last May.
This is during the May visit, sir. Yes. Thank you. When was the DOJ, the DND, the NSA, perhaps you can go through the list, when were you made aware of the request of the U.S.? We call on the DOJ, please. I think there are several representatives. When were you apprised of the request? Anyone from the DOJ was informed at any point in time? The DND, when were you made aware of the request?
Madam Chair, insofar as our records are concerned, when it was in December of 2022.
Was it from the DFA, from Washington, or from the State Department directly? From the DFA. Is this a letter?
I will try out, Madam Chair. I would suppose it would have been written merely through meetings, according to us. That's not correct. Merely through convening meetings, Madam Chair.
Meetings.
Yes.
The convenient meetings, are these the June meetings? The earlier June
Iniisa-isa ng ating
Is
super
this a familiar
ate
occurrence?
ang mga kaganapan kung bakit nagkaroon ng ganitong klaseng request to accept Afghanistan
paano
refugees.
yung DOJ, kailan ninyo napalitaan itong request na ito?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I stand corrected.
Yes, sorry.
I was reminded by Secretary Manalo that it was October of last year.
As early as
They
October.
convened, yes, Madam Chair.
Was that a meeting or referral said request? Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, it was informal. It was an interagency. And in fact, if I could just read off the agencies who were there.
Yes, if you could, thank you.
Yes, the meeting that we had called for was attended by Representatives. Was on October.
Masyadong mabusisi ang mga tungkol sa issue na
Call to a meeting.
acceptance ng Afghanistan refugees.
We confirm, Madam Chair, that there was such a interagency meeting of which the DOJ was a part of.
Thank you. So, does Nika have the same in the records, please?
Madam Chair, as far as Nika is
Kakarating na ngayon ni Senator Francis Tolentino.
ADC conference 26 of April 2023. And
So, as far as Nika was concerned, you were only told in April?
this was discussed 26 April 20th of the ADC Anti-Terrorism Council.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you properly.
DICA is the Secretariat of the Anti-Terrorism Council, and this was formally discussed before the body, chaired by E.S. Bersamin, and that was 26 of April 2023.
Only in 2023. Hindi kayo kasama doon sa October and December. Is that correct? Okay, what about the BI? Immigration, please. Kailan kayo nasa BI?
As far as BI is concerned, ma'am, we only attended the June 2, 2023 interagency meeting. It was the first time that our presence was requested.
Right, that's the same as our information. Is there anyone from Muslim Affairs and DepEd?
So dito, iniisa-isa ng super ate lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno na kasama sa interagency meeting regarding sa acceptance ng Afghanistan refugees.
I'm confused. June 2 or June 5? Or June 7?
There was also a meeting, ma'am, in June 7.
But there was a previous meeting June 2.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there was a letter, June 5 letter. Tapos there was another.
Maraming salamat. Paki-like and share lang po para mas marami pong makapanood.
We were invited to the June 7 meeting.
Okay. Anyone from DepEd? Kailan kayo napunta?
Ay, shoutout Lods Jocelyn. Panawarin po natin kung paano gisahin ng ating pambansang ate ang bawat ahensya tungkol sa pagtanggap ng mga Afghanistan refugees dito sa ating bansa.
There was a letter from Director Director General De Leon asking the Vice President to comment on the subject proposal.
I see. Have you commented?
Yes, ma'am. The Department of Education submitted a comment that was signed by the Vice President last April 20, 2023 to NICA, to Director General De Leon, and I've already also submitted a copy of our comment to the Secretariat for your perusal.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not yet in receipt. I'm sorry I was not able to read it. The NBI, kailan tayo nasabihan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will receive a letter last April 20 from the Anti-Terrorism Council. We are required to submit our comments and inputs.
So makasabay kayo ng NICA?
Yes, ma'am. And then we attended the meeting last June 7
Yeah.
at the Presidential Management Staff.
Magkakapareho kayo.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? PNP? Nasabihan pa kayo kagad?
Yes, ma'am, for the Philippine National Police, we received an email as October 24, 2022.
I see. And I see Mr. Libardo Alexander.
Madam Chair, from the National Security Council, Deputy Director General Nestor Herito, we received a departmental level from the DFA, from Undersecretary for Civilian Security and Consular Affairs, dated 2 November 2022, and we replied their departmental letter as of 15 November 2022.
Okay. Since you were informed to the DFA, but was any of you furnished a copy of the U.S. request? If so, when did you receive the copy of the U.S. request? Secretary Manalo, was there a U.S. request? You said there was. Is that correct? You said that there was a formal request, as a matter of fact? You said earlier? Is that
It's a
correct?
formal request in the form of a concept.
Yes. So was the concept note then cascaded to all the relevant agencies like the DND, the DOJ, etc.? Or did you keep it confidential?
Initially, once we got it, we just informed the agencies who I mentioned, the DOJ, DND, NICA, Philippine National Police.
Informed means you told them, but did not provide a copy of the concept letter. Is that correct?
We did. We invited them to a meeting, and in fact, the general consensus.
But he
has
seems to be ignorant of the other resource person seemed to be ignorant of the existence of the concept.
Well, we did not invite them yet.
Nung sa umpisa,
We gave it
yung
to
October,
we gave it to the agencies whom we invited. In fact,
sino-sino po? So far, the DND seems to be the only one who's been invited on the 20th.
AFP, PNP.
Come again, can we start? DND, AFP, PNP, NICA.
Then those were the four we got invited.
Okay,
And DOJ.
DOJ. Can these 5 agencies confirm the receipt of said concept note from the United States?
Madam Chair, so
Yes.
far as our records are concerned, I confirmed receipt by our Assistant Secretary for Strategic Assessment and
Okay.
International Affairs on
Thank you
21
very much.
October.
On October.
Yes, ma'am. Letter from the DFA.
DND Secretary Ambassador
There to attach to the
confirmed
proposal
there is a
for
request that the
report.
one of his under his department received a request.
Thank you very much from the Secretary.
Salamat, Lutz
DOJ.
Jocelyn. Salamat, April, like and share. Thank you.
We were also in receipt of the concept.
In October. Okay. AFP and PNP as well as NICA. Kanina sinabi niyo, Abril na kayo nasabihan. Meron ba? Wala. Kanina kasi, ang pagkasabi, April 26, 2023 was the first notion you had during the meeting of the Anti-Terror Council. Did you receive?
Madam Chair, I will confirm that was discussed as 26 April, but I was checking on the record that we received a notice from NSA 30 March of 2023.
March 2023. So you never received the U.S. concept note?
It was...
Session ngayon, dalawa-dalawa ang hawak nating camera. Isang full video recording, isang naka-live.
So, there seems to be some discrepancy in the transmission. The three agencies, AFP and PNP, similarly received it later in the day, right?
Ma'am, for the PNP, we received it on October 24, 2024.
Oh, kanina sabi mo Marso na April.
No, ma'am, October 24, 2022.
Oh, okay. Kanina iba kasi. Alright, yung AFP.
Grabe, kabusisi magtanong ang super ate.
Good afternoon, ma'am. From the
Ang
AFP.
super ate ay
We
as in
received the
bawat detalye
memo from the
hinihimay at
dated
sinisiguro
25
niya
October. So,
na
yes, ma'am. Of 2022.
maayos
So, the
at
LD.
accurate.
But no concept, no? Request for comments lang po, ma'am. I-request namin. No concept. So, both the AFP, the PNP,
Salamat
and the
Diyos. Sige,
NICAN,
nakanilang
sorry,
tayo dahil
both the AFP and
marami
the
tayong
NICAN did not
matututunan
receive the
dito sa
concept note.
sinasabi natin pambansang
That's
ate.
correct. Because the PNP now says that they actually received it. Pero yung AFP, wala? O baka nakakabit dyan, nakaalis? Baka nakaalis lang yan.
Nakita mo na?
So AFP in
Si Senator
fact,
Amy alam
you
na
need
meron.
not get it.
Pero yung nagsasalita hindi.
Parang wala.
I check my record lang.
All right.
Madam Chair.
That's fine. Yes, and we recognize Senator Tolentino, you're encouraged to butt in at any point in time. Is this the usual procedure for requests? Of course, this is not usual business at all. But prior to the resolution filed by myself on June 8th, was there any press release on the part of the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., the DFA, or any other government agency concerning the request of the United States and the course of action that the government plans to take? The Philippine government plans to take. Nag-anunsyo na kayo ng press release o pinag-usapan na ba ito in any public forum at all?
No, Madam Chair, because we were still consulting and trying to assess the implications of this proposal. So nothing was final in that sense because we were still trying to collate all the views. And if I could just mention that after some consultation with the interagency, we decided to raise it to a higher level.
Ang ating super ate.
This is when we went to the Anti-Terrorism Council. That was the one in April. And because we felt
Napakalaking mamamayang
it should be now
Pilipino.
considered at a slightly higher level than the technical working level. Then I think the ATC, if I recall correctly, then recommended it be elevated to cabinet level for further consideration. So we tried to follow all the steps by first consulting all the agencies. In fact, I could give later a list of the representatives, at least of the October meeting. And in fact, the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the concept note of the value by the United States, the preliminary observations. And then we proceeded to hold a few more interagency meetings on it, collate the observations of the various agencies. And when we reached the point in April, we had enough of these observations, we decided it's time now to raise it to the higher level of the ATC in April.
Thank you. We appreciate the prudence and determination to raise it to as high a level as possible. Because until this moment, the terms of the proposal and request of the United States are still shrouded in mystery as far as the public as well as the Senate is concerned. Are you free to share with us some of the terms of said request, even only in the context note? And we have here Senator Tolentino, I think, who's just to also.
I'm referring to the same IAC created by virtue of EO 160. Is it the same?
Oh, no. That's the old one of 2020.
So we have a new one.
No, not yet.
Because this was circa 20,
Yes.
nabago na yun.
Wala pa. That's
Iba yun, iba yun.
Duterte.
I had mentioned the system
Later, sorry, like,
makikita natin na kitang-kita natin na alam at busising-busisi na ng ating super ate Amy ang bawat detalye ng issue nitong Afghanistan refugee. Halos siya na rin na sumagot sa tanong ni Senator Francis Tolentino.
Already informed. However, in the interest of transparency, are you able to share with us how many Afghan nationals in total the U.S. intends to temporarily house in the Philippines? How many on
Dito,
per month or per
tinatanong
batch
na
basis
ng
will be housed
pambansang
in this
ate kung
country?
ilan
I think
ang
Senator
pinipilit
Chinggoy
nila
already mentioned our gaping housing gap
papasukin.
and the sudden urgency to house aliens and non-nationals suddenly taking primordial concern. Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, we have
Maraming
not
salamat po.
got
Like and share lang po.
kind of detail in our informal consultations with the United States because they have come back now and again over the past few months to discuss some of the issues
Pasensya na sa
involved.
shaky na.
All I can say
Wala
at this point,
kasing
and I say that
tripod.
because there's really nothing agreed yet, but it seems that there is a possibility, if we were able to have any kind of arrangement, we will be having perhaps a pilot group, maybe a limited number. Now, we haven't even discussed that number yet. We could first see how that pilot group would work, and then we will decide on how to proceed after that. We have not gone beyond that issue, other than to say we might have a pilot group. But what I can say are the following, and these appear in the concept note, and also our further formal talks with the United States. We understand from the U.S. that all Afghans who will be traveling with valid passports and will have already
Pasensya na medyo shaky yung video. Ayusin ko.
would already have undergone rigorous security vetting and background checks to verify that they have indeed previously worked for the U.S. government, because these would be Afghans who had worked before for the U.S. government. And we've also been informed that all costs would be shouldered by the United States government. Also, the United States would, with Philippine officials, try and select a suitable site where they could be located while they're being processed or vetted. It would, of course, be up to the Philippines. We also mentioned that to them, that if any arrangement, it would be up to the Philippines to impose mobility restrictions and internal movements within the Philippines. The U.S. also committed to us that in the event there are Afghans who come here for processing, that no one would be left behind in the Philippines. And that includes even those who may be denied SIV, whom we expect will be removed to another country outside of the Philippines as soon as their maximum allowable period of stay expires. And therefore, any agreement we feel on this effect with the U.S. must contain provisions regarding the removal of those denied SIP. There are also a number of points I could.
Yes, Secretary, we're in receipt of your briefer. Thank you very much. Yes, that's correct. So the numbers have not been discussed, but there have been various reports. Perhaps Ambassador Romualdez, you could help us. There are reports that upwards of 1,000 eligible Afghan nationals per month would be sent, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 per batch, reaching a total of 30 to 50,000 Afghan nationals to
Pasensya na
arrive
medyo
in the
malikot po.
Philippines under
Inaayos
this
po natin.
effort.
Wait lang po.
Is that correct, Ambassador Romualdez?
Yes, Madam Chair, that is what they were telling us, that they would like to see if they can bring in at least 1,000 per
Shout out Tita
batch.
Lods yun.
However, I just want to point out that it is really completely up to
Per
us.
batch per month, and the second batch will not come in until the first batch of 1,000 has departed and been processed to go to the United States? Or will there be 30 to
Sorry,
50,000
sorry,
total
nag-aayos po tayo
Afghans
ng
in the Philippines at one time?
It's completely up to us on how we want to proceed with this request. If we can have it 1,000 each
Wait lang
time,
po
and they
sa
will
mga jacket,
be
ha?
repatriated to the United States once they receive their SIVs, or they will bring in perhaps 1 or 2,000. It depends on the kind of boarding or lodging that they will provide, which all of these there will be at their expense.
Yes, thank you. I would like to call on Senator Coco Pimentel, who has been raising his hand.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. May I ask, where are these potential Afghan refugees right now?
Ambassador Romualdez.
Yes, from the way I understand it, they are currently located either still in Afghanistan,
So,
perhaps
sa
some of them
screen si
family members
Ambassador
of
Jose
this,
Manuel Romualdez.
people who work in the United States,
And
with the
then
United
si
States
Senator
government.
Jinggoy and Senator Coco Pimentel.
The last conversation I had with the State Department is that some of them are in Pakistan at the moment.
So thank you for that point of information, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Tolentino, please.
Ambassador Romualdez, a few questions.
Yes.
Aside from the United States, there are existing similar SIP programs right now. We have one in Canada, the Special Immigration Measure. We have one in Germany, also applicable to the Afghans. The United Kingdom has the Afghan Relocation and Assistance Policy, or ARAP. Australia has a program known as the Afghan Locally Engaged Employees, or LEEE. Aside from the United States, were there requests coming from the other countries I mentioned a while ago?
Not to us, not that I know of.
But you are aware of the several programs I mentioned a while ago.
Yes, they pointed that out to us, that there are programs of other countries similar to what they are requesting.
And if you're familiar with these programs, these are short-term, temporary programs that would entail the processing of Afghans displaced prior to their relocation, for instance, to Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, Canada. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, ang nangyayari po sa atin, temporary site, controlled by the Philippines, was mentioned by Secretary Manalo, perhaps a site with proper security measures, and perhaps a site funded by the United States. Is the United Nations involved? Mr. Ambassador?
I'm not sure. Perhaps Secretary Manalo could. I don't think the United Nations is involved in this.
Madam Chair, the reason why I'm mentioning this is that, as we speak, there are 29 to 33 Filipinos still in Kabul right now, working for various NGOs. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, Secretary Manalo, we have accepted a similar number of Syrian refugees. And during the past decades, we accepted several East Timor refugees. And if during the time of President Quezon, siyempre po, we believe po yung Russian Jews.
Ayan po sila sa likod ko.
The version of this tax probably is inapplicable right now. And during the time of President Marcos, we have the South Vietnamese being stationed temporarily in Palawan. So, Mr. Ambassador, kung sakaling pong pumunta rito yung Afghans, ang kinakatakutan po kasi ng marami, parang nagkaroon ng stereotyping na suicide bombers ito. Ito po ba ay mga edukado? Ito po ba ay mga kababaihan? Ito po ba ay binubuo ng pamilya na naiwan? Hindi po ito yung mga nakasabit sa aeroplano. Ito po yung naiwan doon dahil nagtrabaho sa mga embassies. Tama po ba?
Tama. Hindi, all of them, lahat sila nagtrabaho for the U.S. government in one way or the other. At saka yung kanilang mga pamilya. Kaya it's anywhere between 50 to 60,000 that are still being processed for repatriation to the United States.
However, Mr. Ambassador, that we are a signatory to countless international agreements that
Yes.
would that should
Senator
allow
Amy
us to
po.
accept these Afghans
Yes.
in our soil. Tama po ba yan?
Yeah, that's correct, Senator.
Senator
And
Amy is the
are you aware
chairperson for the
of,
Committee on
I
Foreign
hope my
Relations.
pronunciation is right. I haven't been to France yet, Madam Chair. Refoulement would mean the return of a refugee to his or her former state against his will, or he will be more threatened by, in this case, the Taliban. So, pag yung nakarating po sa atin, nagdili-dali tayo, pinabalik, marami po tayong violation. Tama po ba yan? Nabasa tayo?
Yan, hindi ko sigurado yan. Pero ang alam ko lang, the United States government has assured us that whoever that we will allow to come into the Philippines for processing, they will take care of them completely. In other words, if they are for some reason denied the SIT that their processing will take place, they will be immediately sent to another or a third country.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. One last point, Madam Chair. Secretary Manalo, correct me if I'm wrong. My data was prepared several weeks ago. More than 90,000 Afghans have been resettled across the United States over the past 20 months. More than 11,000 SIVs were issued to Afghans between October 2021 and September 2022, according to official figures. Tama po ba yan? Yes. Kung sakaling yung tama yung binabanggit niya na 50,000, 1,000, mapapasama tayo rito sa figures na to. Kung dito ay process to. At the rate they're going, 11,000, halos isang taon, 90,000 ang relocate. May posibilidad ba ho, Mr. Ambassador, na bumagal dahil nandito, natambak sa atin? Meron ba akong ganong posibilidad?
Well, hindi, nasa sa atin na yan, Senator, na kung ilan ang gusto natin. Pero ang request nila is anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 per batch. Ipo-process nila, then they will go to the United States. Kung gusto natin less, pwede rin. Ang tinatanong na sa atin is exactly yung kanilang tinatanong o rini-request sa atin, what is it that we will be able to get back to them that we can accept? In other words, not all of this 30,000 or whatever it is they intend to process will come to the Philippines and then they will be here and they will wait for their processing. It will be by batches.
Definitely, Mr.
And it's completely up to us.
Mr. Ambassador, marami mo nakikinig kayo. Definitely, the Philippines will not be the final destination of these refugees.
Yes, that is
Temporary
absolutely.
lang po sila dito. Ang kinakatakutan ng marami, baka malamukan ng mga terrorist. Kaya kung na-elevate na sa Anti-Terrorism Council, etc., etc. Naniniwala po kayo, Mr. Ambassador, na ito pong pinag-uusapan natin ay pangamba na may posibilidad na hindi naman dapat mangyari kasi na-vet na po yun bago dalhin dito.
Correct. Yan ang tama, Senator. Kaya nga, lahat ng ating mga security agencies ay tinatanong ng DFA dahil they also will have to give their comments kung anong tingin nila. Pero yan ang sabi sa atin ng mga Amerikan. They will be vetted first, they will be double-checked before they come to the Philippines and then again through processing.
Madam Chair,
Sa
if I may be
bawat
allowed to
salita
express my
na
personal
binibitawan
sentiment. I don't see anything wrong here.
Senator Tolentino.
Sa tingin ko po, kung talagang na-vet ito, nagkaroon lang ng konting hype, stereotyping, bordering of discrimination. Na siguro naman, mabubuting tao yung iba. Yung mga FW po natin, nasa iba't ibang bansa, tinatanggap naman po yun. Kasasabi ko lang, merong 33 na Pilipinos pa sa Kabul. So siguro kung masasala po ito, wala tayong gastos, nasa secured na lugar, nasa isang isla. I think, Madam Chair, we have abided and complied fully with all our international humanitarian commitments, including the possible erasure of what they term as quote-unquote, human rights records per country. Maginis na ho tayo dito. We're getting here with clean hands. Tinulungan po natin yung mga tao na wala namang mga
Okay.
kasalanan. Details will be laid down. But yun lang po yung sentiments ko, Madam Chair. But
Yes,
ang
sir.
mali lang po dito siguro yung proseso shrouded in non-transparency manner, not revealed to the country, not full explained, siguro DFA yung dapat managot dyan. Pero yung mga Afghans, wala po silang kasalanan. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat, Senator Tolentino. Ngunit, ang ating tinatanong ngayon,
Ayan na.
kung
Malinaw na malinaw.
bakit
Ngunit, may salitang
ipapadala
sinabi.
ng Amerika ang kanilang mga dating empleyado sa ating
Di ba?
bansa. Wala naman tayong kinalaman dito. Hindi ba nila tayo binigyan ng dahilan? What reason was given by the U.S. for
Di ba?
making the aforementioned request?
Malinis
if
na
any? Ambassador
malinis.
Romualdez, Secretary Manalo,
Ang
and as
intensyon
mentioned
ng
by
ating
Senator Tolentino,
sobra atin.
are they in fact
Malaman ang
refugees?
totoong dahilan.
What is the
Bakit?
understanding of the DOJ, the DFA, and the BI of the term refugee? Ambassador Romualdez has explicitly stated these are not refugees. They are former Afghan employees of the U.S. government. I
Ayan
need
na.
clarification po.
Malinis na,
Secretary
di ba?
Manalo,
Ito ay hindi mga refugees.
Romualdez,
Ito ay
please,
mga former employee ng United States.
Lend the light here. Secretary Teodoro is shaking his head. Would you like to vote in, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Your Honor. Technically, they're not refugees,
Yeah.
because basically they're not displaced. They're in their homeland right now.
Ayan na.
They have not applied for political asylum or any
Di
other
ba?
thing. They're
Malinaw
not-
na sinabi at pinaliwanag din ni DND Secretary Gibochadoro na
Their
hindi ito
visas
mga
for the United
refugees.
States shall be processed within this country because of administrative difficulties of the U.S. government, because of their bureaucracy in conducting any processing, but they are not refugees as of this time. They may become refugees
That is
if
correct.
their visas are denied and they are not
And they're not
repatriated.
allowed to be repatriated.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm in full agreement. I think they are not refugees, as rightly pointed out by Ambassador Bates Romualdez. Is that correct, Ambassador? Was your statement regarding the fact that these
Napakasimpleng
are not
kumatay
refugees we are speaking of, and
ng
there
ating
is no
pambansa,
doubt that
ate.
the Philippines upholds and takes pride
Kasi
in
malinaw
our
na
history
parang
of
gustong
giving
parabalin si
suffer and
Senator
refuge
Tolentino
to
na wala naman daw
international
problema
refugees.
sa pagtanggap.
Ambassador Romualdez, please. These are not refugees, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely
ito
correct.
ni
Madam
Secretary
Chair.
Gibo.
They are not refugees, they are employees or former employees of the U.S. government, and they're asking us if we
Diba?
could help them
Mga
in
former
processing them.
employees
Precisely
ito
as
ng
pointed out by
US
Secretary Teodoro,
government,
that it
hindi
is
ito
a
mga
matter of
refugees. So anong
administrative
dahilan? Bakit
in nature.
kailangan dalhin dito sa
Thank you. That
Pilipinas?
being the case,
Bakit
I get
hindi
affirmation
direkta sa
from the
Amerika?
legal that they are not refugees. That is correct.
Diba?
Okay,
Tapos
if
samantalang
that
si
is,
Senator
the status
Tolentino,
of these
sinasabi
individuals,
naman ang
what is the
problema.
basis therefore of the
So
executive
anong
branch of
meron?
government for admitting them into the Philippines under Section 47 of Commonwealth Act 613 on the power of the President to admit aliens for humanitarian reasons, expressly referring only to refugees? Yes, Secretary Manalo, please. What is the basis, since they clearly are not refugees, they cannot be accommodated under Section 47 of the Commonwealth Act?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, the notion as we understood it from the concept note of the United States is there's no intention to leave them here in the Philippines. They're only going to use the Philippines as a temporary site for their processing for their eventual trip to the United States, provided they pass all the vetting. And the U.S. in our talks has also assured us, in case we agree, that they would ensure that none of the SIV applicants would be left behind, nor have the option to consider remaining.
Ang tanong dito bakit kailangan dito
So this
sila
will only be
mag-process sa
in effect a
Pilipinas?
temporary situation. situation.
Bakit hindi nila
And if I could
i-process
just-
dito
Even
sa
the
lugar?
extraordinary
Kung nasan
concern
sila?
instances, and
Di ba?
we appreciate the emergency concern. The worry is, what should be their status while they remain in the Philippines? Will they be non-immigrants or immigrants? What kind of Philippine visa will they be given? Under what treaty will their rights and obligations be governed? The problem is that the special immigrants visa has been promised in 2 weeks. The reality is that we are also aware that they could come as late as 59 days. In the United States, 77,000 continue to wait for their visas for periods longer than 4 years. May we have clarity on their status while they remain in the Philippines?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In this case, the Afghan nationals who would be coming here are, in fact, all Afghan nationals are listed as category A. In other words, restricted nationals who are required to apply for a visa in the Philippines. And normally we would give them up to 30 to 59 days.
So sorry, what will they be again? Non-immigrant, immigrant?
Non-immigrant.
So non-immigrant. So klaro yan, non-immigrant. Okay. And under which treaty are we governing the rights and obligations? Non-immigrant sa ilalim ng alin?
I'll have to consult with that.
Patay, di ba?
Madam Chair, we
Di
have
ba?
a meeting
Yes, Secretary.
on Monday
Oh.
with the
Hindi,
Undersecretary.
hindi sila makasagot na super ate.
Undersecretary Lazaro and Undersecretary Vasquez. Actually, the major problem here really is an immigration problem and a legal problem. And so, I think if the DOJ is already prepared because they still have to come out. We have requested them finally for an opinion on the potential status of these people and the problems in case or the way forward in case their SIVs are denied. To date, Madam Chair, we are still waiting for the opinion. It was only formalized last week that the DFA shall be the lead agency in our conference, person-to-person conference. And we are very sensitive to the issues raised by the chairperson that this not being per se a humanitarian issue, it could turn into a humanitarian issue in case the obligations of the other party are not complied with. Therefore, this was raised to us by the DOJ.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're very pleased, and truly the differences are glaring
Galing
between
na
refugees,
explanation ni Secretary Gibo.
non-immigrants, and immigrants, insofar as regulations, restrictions, and their freedom of movement is concerned. So, what would be off the top of our heads the status if they were non-immigrants? They would be granted freedom of mobility while they are waiting, as they are in the National Convention Center in Arlington, Virginia, as we're well aware. Or as non-immigrants, will they be confined to a single space, apparently in New Clark City? Is that the consideration? What other distinctions do you think are important? I believe that the NBI is deeply concerned about the security permutations in as much as they would impact on our own public safety.
Madam Chair, I think
Yes, Secretary, please.
to answer, even the housing is still under consideration. We also do not want them to be housed as if they were detainees, which is the furthest thing from the image we want to portray. And keeping them for an extended period of time within a confined environment, particularly with their children involved, will not only complicate their physical liberty, but the end state of their mental health and wellness too. That is why
There's also, Secretary, Secretary, sorry to butt in, but actually, there's also the consideration that
tuwan-tuwa
they
si
will
Senator
come
Amy sa
back
kanya.
and forth to apply for the special immigrant visa from New Clark City and all the provinces involved. going towards the U.S. Embassy in Metro Manila. Is that our understanding?
Madam Chair, insofar
Because that is what is stated so far in the brief.
No, Madam Chair, as far as the informal discussions between us last week is that all the services from the processing to their medical care shall be done on site.
This is not medical care. I think this has to do with their visa application.
Even then, Madam Chair, the U.S. Embassy has to place extension services.
Parang iba yung sinabi ng DFA. Ang sabi ng DFA, mag-a-apply pa sila sa consular offices ng US Embassy. Wala doon sa Clark. Mabalik-balik sila. Kaya yung sinasabing confined to a certain space, hindi related yun. Yes, Secretary.
Siya po yun na
Although
naman sila.
NBI is recommending, according to the briefer, I hope I quote you right, na sana magpadala ng visa, special visa officer na lamang doon sa lugar. Imbes sa ganito. Yes, Secretary Manalo, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, when we refer to the U.S. Embassy, etc. here, that is the U.S. proposal. And we still have to react to that. I think Secretary Isidoro, felt that we feel perhaps that this should not be the arrangement. But the U.S. proposal, at least in their concept notes in discussions, was that the applicants would visit the U.S. Embassy here in Manila for a visa interview, and then an embassy-identified hospital for medical evaluation for the actual issuance of the U.S. visa. That is the U.S. suggestion.
Yes, that's the American
We
suggestion.
are not necessarily in agreement with that.
I understand. The reason, of course, is that until October of last year, in the National Convention Center of Virginia, where they were actually being processed, they could leave the facility at any time, were not considered prisoners by any means, and could therefore have freedom of mobility. Is that the same thing we're suggesting? And have we consulted New Clark City, Tarlac, for example, Pampanga, Subic, and the rest of the rapports? Yes, Secretary Tudor.
Madam Chair, we have not proceeded to that extent as far as I know. And if there will be, insofar as the Department of Defense, perhaps even our fellow security sector officials, the least amount of area they can travel from and to would be naturally physically better.
Alam niyo mga ka-Johnski, isa lang ang na-observe dito. Sobra ang ating super ate. Lahat ng papel na nasa harapan niya, I'm pretty sure. Kabisado niya kung ano ang content. Kasi alam niya kung ano ang itatanong niya. Alam niya kung ano yung mga possible na sagot na inaantay niya.
Yes, I'm just curious why there's been a change of heart. I mean, in the past, we're aware that following the withdrawal of the United States from Kabul, many Afghans were processed in the United States. Bakit bilang nabago? They used to house the Afghan evacuees in facilities within the U.S., like I said, the National Conference Center in Virginia. And then in September 2022, there appears to have become a new strategy where the Afghans arriving in the U.S. no longer will be temporarily housed in safe haven facilities in the U.S. What is the reason? Maybe Ambassador Romualdez, you can tell us what is the reason for the change in strategy of the United States? Bakit ayaw na nilang tanggapin yung mga Afghan doon sa National Convention sa Arlington? Napakarain na nung dumaan doon at biglang nagbago at biglang tayo na ang kinakatukan.
Well, actually, the fact is that there are quite a number of
Malutong ang tanong ating super ate kay Ambassador Jose
Pero the
Manuel
main reason why
Romualdez.
they're also asking other countries, we're not the only
Tama
one.
nga naman.
There are other countries, I think Germany is also being asked.
Ng processing ng mga these so-called refugees. And yet, bakit kailangan ngayon idaan dito sa
It's because there's
Pilipinas?
just so many of them that they would like to be able to do it quickly as quickly as possible because they have a timeline, I suppose. And that's the reason why we're being asked.
Kasi maraming posibleng
as an ally of
mangyari
the
dyan.
United States.
Tama nga naman si Secretary
We are
ko
one
kanina.
of a number of countries
Maraming
that they have
pwedeng mangyari
requested
dyan the moment
if
na
they could use it.
makapasok dito.
They use the country for
Yung
the processing
bayan,
of these
lalo
Afghan
na't hindi
nationals that
naman
work
tuloy
in
ang
the
mga
United States.
refugees. Yan
Yes,
yung mga
Ambassador, you say there are
opisyal
just
ng
too many
gobyerno ng
Afghans.
USA.
We're talking about tens of thousands because we've heard that 25,000 were already processed through UAE, 10,000 in Qatar. You now mentioned Germany and
And
Albania.
that's the reason
Are there
why
tens of
that Senator
thousands,
Amy
hundreds
is
of
asking
thousands,
questions.
millions?
Is there a formal request
projected
letter
number to this
or
enormous
verbal order
migration?
lang ba to from the
The number
United
that
States?
we
Ito yung
received
mga
is
tinatanong ng
around
pambansang
50,000
ate.
that are still for processing.
50,000.
This includes people who work with the U.S. government and their families.
Pero kung 50,000, yun din ang hinihingi sa Pilipinas. You mean to say 100%, yung buong 50,000, lahat babagsak sa Pilipinas? Bakit ba huminto yung UAE at yung Qatar? Ba't sila huminto? Bakit huminto yung US? Dati naman pinoprocess doon, nakatenga pa, 77,400. Bakit tumigil ang US? Bakit sila tumigil? Bakit bigla Pilipinas ang naisip?
Okay tayo. Meron na silang transaction on ongoing sa Dubai, sa UAE, na Arab Emirates and Qatar. Diba? Tinatanong ng super natin ngayon, bakit tumigil ang process doon? Bakit ngayon? Biglang Pilipinas na.
The Philippines could be a place where we could allow them to process their special immigrant visas.
The reason I ask, sir, is that UAE and Qatar are obvious processing areas because of their distance. And they're already doing this, 25,000 and 10,000. Why did they stop? Kung 50,000 na lang ang butal, kaya na nila idagdag doon. Nagkakaintindihan sila.
Exactly. That's the
Magkapareho
point.
sila sa kinakain, sa
Diba?
gawin,
Malinaw.
sa iba't
Diba?
ibang
Tama nga naman ang super ate. Bakit kailangan
Well,
dito
pwede
pa?
natin itanong sa kanila kung bakit.
Diba? Bakit kailangan dito pa?
Ang pagkalam ko,
Nandun na sila sa United Arab Emirates and Qatar, which is pare-pareho nga naman sila ng culture. And yet, why all of a sudden dito sa Pilipinas na ganyan?
Dito sa Pilipinas. As
Please.
one of the many countries that they're asking for this.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not unwilling to help. Like all Filipinos, we have an open arms policy to all refugees throughout the world at any time. However, it appears to me that we are an unlikely candidate simply because napakalayo po natin. Parang nilalayo natin sila lalo, samantalang meron ng existing. Unang-una, kung babagsak rin sila sa US, bakit hindi nga ituloy-tuloy na lamang yung nandyan sa Virginia?
Oh,
Nahinto
baka
ba
mamaya
since
sabihin na
Washington,
naman,
D.C. is cleared by
kinukontra na
Virginia?
naman ng
Have
super
they stopped
ate, ha?
processing people in the
Diba?
National Convention
Tinitingnan
Center?
ng mabuti ng super ate
I
ang
don't think so. I
kapakanan
think
ng
they're
ating
still
bansa.
processing a number of them
But-
as of now.
I see, because I understand from press releases that with the Operation Allies Refuge, Operation Allies Welcome, and the other enduring welcome efforts of the United States, the Biden administration announced that Afghan nationals in October 1 of 2022 will no longer be able to enter the U.S. under the Humanitarian Parole Authority. So tinigil sa US, samantalang ito, empleyado ng US. Bakit tayo ang magiging sangkalan? Yun lang, tanong ko.
Malinaw na
Well,
malinaw.
pwede natin itanong sa kanila kung bakit sa atin na. Pero as I said,
Malinaw na malinaw.
isa tayo
Itinigil
mga
sa
babae
Amerika.
na humingi sila ng tulong.
Bakit
Pwede
nga naman
idaan
tayo
doon
gano'ng
bago nila
sangkalan,
tingin sa
sabi
Amerika.
ng super ate. Di ba? So kung
Would
hindi
you
na pa rin
know, in
naiintindihan yan,
Thailand, our good neighbor and ASEAN partner, which is a treaty ally of the United States, has been requested by the United States to process Afghan employees as well.
I am not sure, Madam Chair.
I have been told that no request was ever made to Thailand. Why only the Philippines?
Well, as I said, they approached us in October and we said that we will consider it and we're going to study the matter. But we have not asked them why they picked us. The only reason
Grabe, classic
they
yung
told
mga
us is
facial
because
expression
they
dito
felt
ni
that
Senator
the Philippines was an ally that they could ask this particular favor, perhaps if you want to call it that. And they have brought it up to the highest levels in our government, including the President.
Okay, so if the U.S. is unable or unwilling to temporarily house their Afghan employees in U.S. soil, why don't they go to U.S. territories such as Guam, Puerto Rico, Guantanamo? Secretary Manalo, you're raising your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought
Uy,
I'd just say
salamat na,
a few
Didi.
words on this issue on the why the U.S. might have approached us. Of course, we can only surmise, but what I gather is aside from being a partner and a treaty ally, I think they also are aware of our long tradition.
Iba, grabe ang pambansa natin. Grabe, love na love ko talaga. Kaya lalo kong love na
To
love ko eh.
refugees, Secretary.
Diba, grabe ang
Said these are
takbo
not
ng utak.
refugees.
Grabe ang analytical
And
skills.
on the issue why they're not being processed in the United
Diba?
States, actually these are SIV applicants and not applying for refugees. I mean, they're not refugees as such. And as we understood from the United States, their laws require that this category, SIV applicants, have to be processed in third countries, not in the United States. So perhaps those could be the reasons why, in fact, that's one of the reasons why they approached us on this.
Pero magulo rin sa atin yan, di ba? Kasi under our immigration rules, and the BI is here to confirm, Norman, please, Afghan nationals are Category 1 nationals. They should first obtain Philippine visa before entry in Islamabad. Isn't that correct? So that puts into question their status if they remain in the Philippines as well. So that also puts into question our ability to impose our laws on all those in our territory.
Boom.
And we'll sacrifice all that simply because we'd like to accommodate a favor that could probably be better served elsewhere. Just a question.
That's why we have to be very clear.
Just a question.
If we were to accede to this, that our laws would be followed. If they have a stay of 30 to 59 days, for example, in accordance with our category A, then we would have to apply that strictly, and we would have to make that very clear to the United States that they could not stay longer than they are allowed, according to Philippine law, because of their specific category. And
I
that's the
like
point
that
we would,
smile of Senator
whenever
Amy.
we ever get into
Alam mo yung
negotiations
ngiti niya,
with the US or
sobrang
on
pang-asyar.
US.
Ayan yung facial expression niya.
Yes, Secretary, this is a real problem because of the change in strategy in the United States and the refusal now to extend humanitarian parole authorities. We are not certain they will actually receive their special immigrant visas. And the delay, as we know, has been tremendous and admitted by the Americans themselves. Sadly, unfortunately, the Humanitarian Parole Authority is one that myself and my family utilize, so I'm inordinately familiar with the same. It guarantees no residence, it guarantees no rights or any other abilities under that status, nor any immigrant or other privileges.
Ayan na, pinaliwanag ng pambansang ate.
It's
Ayan,
not
di ba?
something I would wish on anyone. Okay, there is a further question. You said that
The super
rigorous
ate is
security
talking
vetting
based on
has
her
already been
experience
done
and their
by the
family's
United States
experience, di ba?
What about the Philippine government? Are we able to undertake rigorous security vetting and background checks? Will we be able to go over their employment records and all their family details from Islamabad
Malinaw
to
na
our
malinaw, di ba?
very
Ang saya
eager
nito mamaya
embassy
sa social
deployments out
media.
there that covers
Paglabas nitong
Kabul.
report na to. Napakasaya. No?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Secretary General.
if the category would be former U.S. government employees, then the job is much easier because they would have been vetted in the first place
Sobrang
before they would
nakakatuwa
be
ito
hired.
kasi
Admittedly, there are
hindi
problems with their family
yung
members
ibang
ever who were not
departamento
vetted.
nahihirapan
And that is one of the
mag-explain kay
issues
super
that we will want
ate.
to go through. What kind of vetting did they go through in the first place? Which I personally, I wonder if the other agencies, what standard they will apply.
Yes, the NBI has questioned, so have some papers from the PNP questioning our ability to actually vet the incoming applicants.
What we are certain, Madam Chair, is once they arrive in country, then we can, of course, take precautions as to what they may do. Because, for example, like even in voice calls or whatnot, we can have them sign certain waivers, like when you answer a call center, this phone call is being recorded for your protection, or even like a company email or a Senate email for that matter. However, insofar as their backgrounds are concerned, there definitely will be some gaps. However, insofar as the NSC position is, depending on the arrangements made for their stay here, the number of those that will be agreed upon, the risk is low.
Yes, certainly. We appreciate your anxiety and we share the NBI, the PNP, the AFP's concern, as well as the anti-terror group's concern, that we simply do not have sufficient information and capability to get background checks on all of them. And even if we confine them to quarters and treat them almost as immobile prisoners, the reality is there are IT and other communications technology is available. The other consideration is NBI has mentioned the presence of sleepers among Afghan applicants as being highly probable, that the presence of SIV applicants could make the Philippines a target for Taliban and its splinter groups, and so on. Is that a reality? We so far do not recognize the Taliban government in Afghanistan, although we have had diplomatic relations with the country for a long while now. What exactly do we anticipate? NBI, perhaps, since you are very concerned about the security aspect and submitted an early paper on the same.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think the impression we noted is that we have sympathizers from the southern Philippines, from our Muslim brothers. So that is a possibility, Madam Chair.
Yes, would anyone from NICA and the other security agencies would like to comment that local terrorist groups could exploit the situation and be strengthened or encouraged in some way by the presence of the Afghans here?
From NICA, Madam Chair, we also express the same anxiety because they are given also the opportunity to for these some terrorists to travel, and that is a problem of records checking, and it will pose some security concern later on.
Yes, quite apart from the background of these Afghans, will it be a source of propaganda and extremist narrative in pro-Taliban and Al-Qaeda groups, other sympathizers that we are all fully aware of that exist in our Muslim South?
Certainly, Madam Chair, this could be used as a propaganda, and it could also, since our apprehension is about the sleepers, they could always be activated, and it will have an impact as far as revival of some activities in the South.
Yes, the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos are very concerned about peace in Mindanao. Attorney Puro, you expressed some doubt about this effort.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The same sentiments we raised during the June 7, we are not particularly concerned about the infiltration or the sleepers among these coming Afghanistan, but more of being a target of an attack. As we all know, just recently, this Wednesday, an incident happened in Marawi again, concerning the same group who caused the Marawi siege. So apparently they're regrouping and they're growing in numbers because of the continuous problems in Marawi that up until now, most of these affected by the Marawi siege were not yet, they have not returned to their homeland or to their homes. So these are the concerns for the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, because if their mobility will not be limited, and even if their mobility will be limited, these people from the south or these sympathizers of the ISIS-inspired group can easily, travel to Luzon. And that is the concern actually.
So just
We
recently,
agree with
last
the
Wednesday
security
lang,
council
meron
that
na
as far as the
issue sa
infiltration
Marawi,
of
no?
Taliban inspired from this Afghanistan, that is very slim. But for the security concerns of those within the Philippines already, like the sympathizers of these leftist groups.
Diba? Payagan
Yes,
na
that
makapasok
is
itong
very
mga
obvious, right?
Afghanistan refugees. Sorry.
Yes, I
Itong mga
think that is the
Afghanistan
fact
US
that the
government
U.S. no
employees.
longer wants to house these foreigners in safe havens within the territorial United States. Raising concerns
Just
for us.
imagine kung
They're
ano
claiming
magiging
that they're
epekto
very
nito
low-risk security,
sa
that
sambayan ng
highly
Pilipinas
vetted
kung
groups
sakali na payagan nito
will
ng
be the only
ganun-ganun
ones
ang
coming, and that
hihimayin.
the SIV is assured, and yet they don't want them. Doesn't this raise concerns on the background and character of these individuals? Ayaw na ng empleyado, ng employer. Ayaw ng employer kunin yung dating empleyado. Kukuha. Tayo hindi nangangamba. Sila ayaw. At ganun.
Ang linaw nun, di ba? Ang
Wala
linaw
sasagot.
nung binigyan.
Secretary Manalo, no, just play devil's advocate and, well, it seems like sila yung employer.
Diba?
Kaya ayaw nila
Ang
sa mga
galing.
empleyado nila, ayaw nila kunin. Ba't tayo kukuha? Wala naman tayo
Diba?
kinalaman sa
Kung yung
nila.
employer
Hindi
niya
natin
naman
kaalaman.
ayaw tanggapin yung
Nakakawa
empleyado
tayo,
nila.
pero makakawa muna tayo sa sarili natin.
Di ba? Oo.
Yes po. Oscar
Napakalinaw.
Babes, Jinggoy.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, sinabi na nga ni Secretary Manalo, which I confirmed, that ito nga ang special immigrant visa, kailangan talaga bago sila makapasok sa Amerika, ipoprocess at last. Iba yung refugee status dito sa special immigrant visa. Kasi the minute they approve that, talagang they can come to the United States, work here, live here, and this is going to be their new home. Yun ang pagkalam namin sa special immigrant visa.
Yes, tama pa. Kaya dun sa interagency meeting June 7, pati DOTR, transport, di ba, kasama. Kasama na rin DepEd. Ibig sabihin, 4 years of
Shout out,
school. Kasi 4 years average yung application ng SIV. Mag-eskwela pa ba yan? Elementary at high school, di ba? Kasi pinatawag kayo. Sino-sino pati yung sinatawag? DICT, DOST. Lahat tinawag di ba? So, pang matagalan yan, hindi yan 2 weeks na sinasabi ipoprocess. Senator Jinggoy, nagtaas po kayo ng kamay. Nakamute po, Senator Jinggoy, nakamute ka. Senator Jinggoy, did you raise your hand? Nakamute ka pa. Ayun. Ayun. Senator Jinggoy.
Yes, Madam Chair, for those Afghan nationals who will be denied the special immigrant visa, may I know what is the plan of the United States and where will they go if their temporary visas will expire? Who will cover the expenses if they need to leave the Philippines?
Exactly.
Sa lahat. And if they are, as they put in that concept paper, they will repatriate them to a third country or bring them back to where they are. But they claim that the percentage of this is practically nil.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, I was just wondering, why did they choose our country? Why not other ASEAN countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, etc., etc.? I was just curious about it.
Well, let's put it this way. Ang tingin nila,
Di ba? Even
we are
Senator
an ally of
Sandro
the United States. So,
asking,
tinanong nila
bakit
sa atin
Pilipinas? Sa dami
if
ng
we are
mga
willing to
bansa.
do this. And it's
Bakit
true, yung sinabi nga ni
dito
Senator Tolentino na
Pilipinas?
we've had a history of really accepting this
Pagsiksikan
even from before.
ng
Alam mo, yung,
ang
for
kanilang
instance, yung
mga
ginawa
empleyado.
ni President Manuel Quezon, hanggang ngayon, dito sa Amerika, yung American Jewish community, lagi nilang sinasabi nila ang Pilipinas ay talagang nakatulong sa kanila. So they're really going out of their way rin whenever they can. Marami nagsasabi sa akin sa Israel, yung ating mga OFWs, iba yung trato sa kanila. They give them special care dahil sa ginawa ni President Quezon. So I assume that, as pointed out, even if they're not refugees, we have a reputation for being able to be open in helping people in distress.
Yes, what about the vetting process, Mr. Ambassador? Who is going to vet them?
Well, the U.S. government will vet them. Actually, as Secretary Manalo said, we're going to issue them a temporary visa to come into the Philippines for about 59 days. So there is a time limit for that visa. And once it's expired, the United States is, I assume, obligated to bring or either process it immediately or
share po.
Are we not going to be involved in the vetting process, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, our vetting process is really going to be before we issue the visa. Do natin all of this information has to be given to us, whatever information that we can get on the people that we're giving these visas.
Ambassador Wallace, I'm sorry, Jinggoy. What visa? We're giving them a visa before they come to the Philippines, Ambassador Wallace?
Well, I think they're giving, from what the
Mag-a-apply
understanding...
sila kay Ambassador sa Islamabad? Dadaan mo na
No.
Islamabad bago pumunta sa Pilipinas, nalito yan pa ako.
Well, yun ang pagkaalam ko that we have to issue them some kind of a visa to be able to stay in the Philippines habang they're being processed.
Ibibigay yung visa saan? Sa Kabul? Wala na tayong embassy sa Kabul, di ba? Pati US. You mean to say, upon arrival, may visa ibibigay ang Pilipinas?
Tanong natin kay Secretary Manalo kasi yun ang understanding na narinig ko na sinabi sa akin.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Jinggoy, sorry. Mas lalo yata akong nalito. Pasensya.
Hindi ba doble-doble ang pag-issue ng visa? Kung mag-i-issue tayo ng visa dito sa Pilipinas, tapos mag-i-issue ng visa sa Amerika, bakit din lang diretso sa Amerika? Bakit kailangan pa dito?
Parang, masyal pa muna. Teka. Secretary Manalo, please. Mag-i-issue upon arrival ng visa sa Pilipinas. Yun ang sabi ni Ambassador Babes eh. Pagkatapos natin i-screen, mabibigyan natin ng visa.
8 lang po.
Upon arrival, nakapag-screen na ba tayo?
Lagyan lang
O
ako ng
umaasa
power
na tayo sa sinasabi ng mga Amerikano na mga okay itong mga taong to? Secretary Manalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what Ambassador Romualdez meant to say is that we have to issue a visa before they arrive in the Philippines. So, bibigyan sila ng
So, saan nila makukuha yung visa niyan? Dadaan muna sila sa Islamabad?
Normally, it would
Yun ang
have to
coverage
be,
eh.
it would have to be through Islamabad. Islamabad PE would issue the 9A visa para maka-enter.
Ang pakagulo naman, ang dami naman nilang papasyalan. So, iikot muna, galing Kabul, pupunta sa Islamabad. Mag-a-apply sa ilang Pilipino sa embassy ron. 50,000 sila, katapat nila 3 Pilipino. Ganun ba yun?
Normally, that's what we would do now.
Tapos, sa Islamabad, pumayag na ba yung Pakistan dito sa scheme na to?
Yeah, kinukonsult pa namin.
Oh, di ba?
Hindi pa alam ng Pakistan. Magugulat na lang sila kakagsalin mga kung sino-sino ron.
Imagine ninyo yun.
Tapos,
Yung-
lilito na ngayon yung aeroplano.
yung
Pupunta
proseso.
mga sa Pinas. Ganun ba
Yeah.
yun? Biglang landing sa Clark. Po.
Di ba? Parang
Electronic
tanga lang.
appearance at the counter in Islamabad. Anong level ng screening kung pindot-pindot lang? Yes.
Ang linaw.
Chair, thank you very much.
Ano nga namang level ng
Before
screening?
this Afghans, which are fully vetted,
Ay, kung
with
electronic
assumption,
screening yung gagawin nila sa Kabul.
Of the U.S. Embassy
it is still the
and
obligation.
not the Filipinos. We've never met them
No,
before.
not yet. It is
Okay.
still the Philippine obligation. It is the obligation of the Philippines to give to process them.
Tinatawanan
Because they
lang
are
sila ng super
categorically
ate.
restricted nationals.
Hindi ba?
All restricted
Kasi nga,
nationals,
all
there
the
are
while,
other countries that are classified
na
as such.
ano na to
We do
ng
a-
super
a
ate.
face-to-face
Kumbaga,
interview, and before that,
na-analyze na
documents
itong
that we request.
mabuti.
All of this is
Nakita
going to
na
happen
itong
before they come
mabuti.
to the Philippines?
That should be the case.
That should be the case. This is your and my understanding of what normally occurs, right?
But you said it correctly that there is the capacity of Islamabad PP is Philippine Embassy in Islamabad is a little bit of a challenge. And at the same time, Madam Chair, it is in the concept paper of the Americans, they prefer that these Afghans will fly directly from Kabul to
Yun
Manila.
nga, di ba diretso Kabul dito sa New Clark, pupunta sa the crib sa New Clark City, di ba?
Yeah.
Yun ang sinasabing plano. Wala nang binanggit na Islamabad, hindi
Wala.
na walang visa ang pinagsasabi. At sigurado ako si Ambassador Cervantes at ang buong Pakistan government walang alam tungkol dito. Secretary Manalo, please.
Yes, ma'am. Kung ngayon if we agree, halimbawa, just example, and we didn't do any change in our visa procedure, talagang dadaan sa Islamabad PE. But in the event na we are now open to this idea, we may have to find additional or different kinds of processing, like maybe through electronic, etc., para lang ma-accommodate yung number. But wala pa tayo dun. I'm just saying, but if it were held today and we agree today, ganyan, they would have to go through something.
Dahil kasi, nagtataka ako, in the United States, they very clearly have their Afghan Allies Protection Act of 2009. The legal infrastructure is very clear-cut. It was amended twice, most recently in 2021. Kaya-kaya nila ayusin yung sa kanila. Kaya-kaya nila kunin yung mga dati nilang empleyado at sa tingin ko, talagang responsibilidad nila. If they're not willing to accommodate their own employees, nor to amend, once again, they've amended twice before, the Afghan Aliens Act, why should we be the ones to bend our immigration rules, overburden our staff in Islamabad as well as New Clark City, and impose all sorts of obligations on our neighbors? Hindi ko naintindihan eh. Yes, Secretary Manalo, Ambassador Babes, does this seem reasonable?
I think we will take into account your views when we consider this further.
We do not in any way attempt to influence or curtail the President's almost absolute power in forging foreign policy. However, by the rubric of simple reasonableness, this appears to be outlandish given the
Pasensya na po, nangalay lang.
the imposition on our already over burdened resources, given our security status, which the Muslim Filipinos themselves declare is precarious at present. Once again,
Makikita mo talaga na there's something fishy dito sa transaction
exactly
na to
how
sa mga
long
gusto
do we
nilang
think the
gawin.
special immigrant
Napakasimple
visa
na mga tanong ng
will take
pambansang
to be
atin.
granted?
Hirap silang
9
sagutin.
months is what is stated under the Afghan Allies Protection Act of the United States. 9 months ang nasa batas nila, to 1 to 2 weeks ang sinabi sa concept note. Tama ba, Secretary Manalo?
Di ba?
How far along are these Afghan nationals
Napakasimple.
with their SIV
ang nire-request daw 2
Alam ko,
weeks.
di ba, magpapakita sila ng
Pero di ba yung
HR,
process alone would take 9 months as per Senator Amy. Kanina nga, sa mga kakarating lang, no? Si Senator Tolentino, siguro kaya umalis. Kasi meron siyang meron siyang time to interpolate. Pero pinapalabas niya kasi na parang wala naman daw problema.
sa UAE at saka sa
Bakit
Qatar.
daw kailangan
Doon, may
usirin
SIV
pa?
na sila.
Nung binigay siya ng Senator Jaime,
Tapos
after mga few
nagrereklamo
minutes,
nga
tumayo na.
mismo yung mga
Umayaw.
American lawyers na tagal-tagal daw sa Afghan request. Nagpe-pending daw ng higit na 4 na taon. So how far along are these guys in their special immigrant applications? Maybe Ambassador Babes was given an indication kung sana pareho lang ng Qatar at UAE, hindi nakaka-nervyos yan. Pwede na rin. Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, what the U.S. has told us is that these applicants are in the last stages of completing the process. So presumably that will fall within our 30 to 59-day requirement for stay. We would have to make very clear that that's the case, but that's what they have intimated to us. That since they're in the last stages...
The grant of a visa is like pregnancy. It's either you are or you aren't. I mean, I don't know about the last stages. There simply is no last stage.
Presumably, we would have to make very clear that whatever process, it has to fall within the 30 to 59-day period we allow for restricted nationals. And would have to be completed, and they would have to proceed to the United States.
Let me clarify, sir. The problem really is, Secretary, that so many time frames are being given. 1 to 2 weeks ang processing daw. Ayon sa kanilang batas, 9 months maximum daw. Ayon naman sa experience ng mga Afghan na nag-a-apply sa Amerika, kabalikat ng kanilang mga abogado, umaabot daw ng 4 years. So gano'ng katagal yan sa Pilipinas? 4 years maninirahan dito? Yes, but which timeline should we believe? Apakadami Asa 1 to 2 weeks, 30 to 59 days, tapos andon 9 months to 4 years. Alin po?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I think responding to the question based on their concept note that after a trial of a few, they do not process, we can discontinue on our option.
That's right, that's
And
right.
it is also, it also cuts against what they want to do if they will not process those notionally in here. Because they can process others, because we will limit the number if we agree notionally. So that is the default, but we understand, and I personally am aware of the backlogs of the Homeland Security in the United States. So who can predict what will happen? It's anybody's guess.
That's correct. Like I said, I have personal experience with the humanitarian parole, and it grants you no status at all for years upon years. Secretary Manalo. Sorry. Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going to quote now from the concept they published in the US. And on that particular case, it says that it would take 30 to 60 days, after which the U.S. government would transport these Afghan nationals to the United States.
Like and share po tayo. Like and share po.
Or, if ineligible, to another country. So I'm just quoting from the concept. So this would fall, I'm assuming we agree to this.
So wala yung 1 to 2 weeks? Kasi yun ang na-quote kay Ambassador Romualdez yata or some other DFA official.
It would take, maybe in some cases, earlier than 30 days. But I think what the U.S. means here is tops, not only exceed 60 days.
Okay, on the magical 60th day, what will occur? Wala pa yung SID.
Well, the U.S. Would be obligated, as we see it here, to transport these nationals, if ineligible, for example, hindi nakaabot sa 60 days to another country outside of the Philippines. Not the Philippines. They wouldn't stay in the Philippines.
If the application is disapproved, the applicants are then considered refugees, and the principle of non-refoulement becomes applicable. We can no longer send them back to Afghanistan. What's plan B?
Thank you, ma'am. That's a point that we have asked the DOJ for an opinion or clarification.
The obverse could also occur if the Philippine government classifies the applicants as not having refugee status, repatriates them to Afghanistan, where their visa applications are not approved. The Philippines will be in breach of its obligations under 1951 Convention, 57 Protocol, and something happens, unfortunately, to these applicants. It later turns out the government misqualified their status, and they were in fact refugees. We've seen many, many movies about this. This has happened too many times. What happens to the Philippine status then? What happens to our reputational risk, as it were? Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, that is a point that we've also been.
Parang labis-labis na papogi ko. Baka madali tayo ng hindi oras.
Yeah, we have also, in similar way, looked at the issue you have raised. And in fact, we again also posed that question to DOJ and get their opinion kung ano kaya yung implication kung mangyari yan. But yes, that's also an issue that we are also contending with, the point you raised.
Okay, does DOJ have the courage to answer? Because I'm not sure.
Your Honors, we concur having received the request for legal opinion coming from the DFA, and we are in the process of finalizing our legal opinion. May we just clarify that we agree with the statements made that these Afghan nationals are not refugees because there is a process involved in being recognized as a refugee under the 1951 Convention, the 1957 Protocol, Your Honors.
Yes, thank you. And okay, just points of information. To your best knowledge, Ambassador Beige, Romualdez, Secretary Manalo, considering that the U.S. Embassy in Kabul is no longer operational, who's the Chief of Mission who will be approving, vetting, and sending over their Afghan employees?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, that's an issue we were going to ask the U.S. If we ever got to talk to them again on who is this CON, since there's no more embassy in Kabul.
But their concept paper mentioned the COM. So surely they know who the guy is and where he stays.
That's why we would ask. Most likely it will be someone in Washington, but we just have to confirm.
Teka, ang magbe-vet yung Washington? I-vet niya yung nasa Afghanistan?
I'm just guessing, but
Parang ang gulo nun, it can't be a chief of mission in Washington. It's a mission somewhere. The chief of mission na sakop ang Afghanistan dahil nagsara yung Kabul. Hindi Washington yan.
Yung may Afghan desk sa State Department.
Babalik sa State Department, Washington.
She will just oversee. Apparently the one in charge of the Afghan.
Mas magulo naman yata yun sa atin. Guaranteed delay yan, maging State Department. Babalik sa swamp.
We will raise that with them.
Walang malapit-lapit na chief of mission. Paano yung chief of mission dito sa Pinas, sa Manila?
Si Ambassador.
Hindi, kasi nagtatanong ako, dahil paano naman yung ambassador natin? Si Ambassador Cervantes sa Islamabad, sinong kadil niya? Hindi natin alam kung sino yung counterpart ng kano. Hindi, nalilito kasi ako kung sino, di ba, kasi critical dito yung vetting, di ba? Alam na natin yun, yung vetting, di ba? It's going to be so clear. Ang sinasabi natin, walang kakayahan ng Pilipinas mag-vet ng mga Afghan nationals na hindi natin kaano-ano, hindi natin kakilala, hindi natin alam kung saan nanggaling. Pero, kaya ng mga Amerikano. Umaasa lamang tayo sa Amerikano. Pero, yung mga Amerikano, wala namang opisina dun sa Kabul para kalkalin lahat ng records nila na malamang nawala na rin. Ang aasahan natin yung Washington pa rin. Ganun ba yun? Since we're only going to be taking the words of the Americans for granted, we'll take the word of the Americans for the ironclad vetting procedure. Which Americans are we talking to, Sana? We don't know. Since we have no capacity to conduct our own screening and background. Yes, Secretary Manalo.
Madam Chair, as you said, and I think the points you have made are very relevant. Kaya we are really, the next step really would be to put together all of our information and we have due diligence among our security agencies, just to be sure that these points are considered if we decide to talk with the U.S. And then the issue of the CON, in fact, that was one point that I raised in our internal discussions, who exactly is the CON? And in fact, we will have to clarify this with the U.S., and I think the points you raised are also relevant, that perhaps if it's in Washington, there might be a problem because of distance. I don't know, but we could certainly raise that point. But they have not yet in their concept paper identified who this would be.
Pero kapag chief of mission, di ba? Siyempre nasa abroad yun. Hindi mo kasi they're referring us to some office somewhere. Okay. So, okay, just to round up the loose ends here. Since the Afghan nationals previously worked for the United States government, some of them will be targets of reprisal by anti-US terrorist groups. How do we intend to protect them? We don't want
Simpleng tanong.
We don't want to confine them to a restricted space and deprive them of freedom of mobility. At the same time, we're fully aware that they could be targets. How do we protect them? Perhaps we can ask the AFP, the PNP, what will be the cost of such protection?
Ma'am, for the part of the PNP, as mandated by law, we are to provide the necessary security assistance and for those who are here in our country or sojourning this country. And for that matter, we have prepared some briefing presentation if Madam Chair will let us permit us to have it shown in.
That's okay. I'm just happy to hear that you have something prepared and please submit them. We'll peruse them at the right time, given the
Shout out, Lord Strike Civilian.
How much will it cost to provide all this extra protection? Already, the city of Marawi is crying for additional armed forces assistance.
Madam Chair, until this time we have no cost of the security arrangement that we have done because of the number of those Afghan nationals who will be coming over.
Yes, the exploding cost of living is no secret to anyone, and more of our countrymen are experiencing hunger. Repeatedly, it has been said that the U.S. will absorb all costs. While some of these are easily determinable, the reality is that other costs will not be readily apparent from the outset. And the personnel, for example, that you will have to assign for protection, and the DepEd that will have to take care of the children and siblings involved, they will no longer be able to perform their regular functions for our citizens or for the agencies. Will there be compensation for this government, for the government employees and even private citizens who will be similarly burdened? Ambassador Romualdez, you've been adamant that the Americans will pay for everything.
That is the understanding I have, Madam Chair, because they told us that when we have a formal discussion on all of these matters that we want to take up, they will, of course, look at it and see whether it is in fact really viable for them to be able to, if we present them a cost that this is what it will cost us, and you said that you will take care of everything, this is what we have. So on that basis, we can actually either say yes or no. They just would like to know from us whether we are prepared to sit down and discuss all the issues that were pointed out earlier and also by you, Madam Chair. And I think that by then we will know exactly what the real score is. If this is going to be everything taken care of by the United States, or the other things that we have other concerns, like for instance, you said about the visas and all that. That also entails cost, obviously, or at least personnel that we will have to assign.
Yes, thank you very much. The worry, of course, is this becomes a lingering problem. We have no set timelines. And 4 years would be a very long time with the entire high school period. I doubt if Ed will be able to undertake all that. In any case, just to round things up, what is the status finally of the U.S. request? At which point are we? Is the approval still under negotiations? Has it been recommended for approval by the President? And is the executive branch merely fine-tuning the details, given that apparently there have been several interagency meetings already last year? A meeting, I believe, in April, thereafter June 2, and then June 7, the latest. What, therefore, is the status of the U.S. request for the Afghan nationals to come to the Philippines? Yes, Secretary Manalo, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, first, we have not entered into any negotiation with the United States on this issue. It's only been through informal contact. In fact,
This is not considered a negotiation, even if a formal concept note was actually provided and the State Department followed up.
not considered, at least as we know it, because it's just an idea of the U.S. and we have within the Philippines gone over it and given our ideas to each other.
Secretary Manalo, I think Ambassador Romualdez has given interviews indicating that it was subject of negotiation because we are considering the request. And I'd like to call on Yusek Boa, who also appears to have a different understanding of the same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, basically, because this has been a subject of consultation with the national government
That's
agencies,
correct.
that being one of them.
Yes, that's correct. There are already, as far as this hearing is concerned, 3 meetings of record involving many, many agencies.
Yes, ma'am. Although on the part of DepEd, we were only able to attend one, which was last June 7, and wherein we also registered, and we also want to register now and state for the record our vehement objection and opposition to the proposal in its entirety. This has been formalized through, again, as I've said, through our comments submitted to the Anti-Terrorism Council, mainly on legal grounds and on security issues. If I may just quickly summarize.
Yes,
on the legal grounds, the department, of course, under the stewardship of the Vice President, Secretary of Education, feels that this will delve into an issue of sovereignty. As we all know, in sovereignty, the exercise of rights and functions of a state must be exclusive from intervention from other states or interference. And in this case, this will include the right to determine who can enter the country and who can stay in the Philippines, whether temporarily or permanently. But in the proposal, at least in the notes that were given to us for comment, it seems that the vetting process will be done by the United States of America. And therefore, this is an interference into our exclusive determination as to who can enter our country. And secondly, of course, as I mentioned during the June 7 meeting, based on the information given to us, the only reason why the U.S. will not be processing these Afghans in U.S. territories is because some internal rule, law, or regulation prohibits them from doing so. And if we may echo what the statement of the chairperson, Why would the US expect us to bend our rules if they are not willing to be flexible in theirs? And that is really a concern of the Department of Education under the Vice President. And of course, aside from that, it's really the security concern. As you know, the schools have been witness to armed conflicts locally. The local terrorist groups is really a concern of the department. And with the presence of Afghans here, if the NC is saying, or NICA is saying that there is low risk in terms of infiltration, we do worry about them being targets because, again, we feel that this might have the risk of further exacerbating an already unstable situation as regards local terrorist groups in some areas in the country. With that, ma'am, I guess we just have to summarize and again state on record our vehement opposition and objection to the proposal in its entirety. And we have again submitted our comments signed by the Vice President to the Secretariat for your perusal.
Thank you very much, Yusek. During the meeting, you were informed that the DepEd would have to educate the families of these Afghan employees of the United States.
Shout out, Lodge Strike Siberia, Lodge
Get to
Jen.
that point.
Why then were you invited?
I think we were invited because DepEd was simply asked to comment by the ATC, the
Not because you were going to
Council.
be directly involved.
We haven't gotten to that point. However, during the meeting, we already registered our objection on the proposal. So we did really get to the point of where DepEd will be participating.
Yes, without commenting on your direct participation, together curiously with the DOTR and DOST. It was a little bit perplexed by the assembly.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Lucette. Anyone else would like to add to the discussion? Since I have no further questions, Commissioner Tansinko, I simply wanted, by way of information, to clarify the chart that you provided, indicating that, in fact, since the declaration, once again, of the Philippines that we were open to Afghan refugees, particularly following the heart-rending videos we all watched upon the departure of the Americans from Kabul. There appears to be a total of 137 Afghan nationals who have arrived in the Philippines from 2021 to 2023. Is that correct? I refer to the chart submitted by our office here.
Yes, ma'am. It is correct, ma'am, that the 137 arrivals from August 1, 2021 to June 14, 2023 comprises all visa categories, not only refugees. It includes the Section 13A married to the Filipina, and 47B2, 47B, 9A category, Seaman.
Yes, but in your listing, I refer to refugees because that seems to be the relevant category. That's 47B, refugees. In 2022, you recorded 4, but in your final tally, only 1. Which is the correct number?
The final tally, ma'am, is 4 in 47B.
Okay, so we have 4 Afghan refugees already in the Philippines.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you aware of their whereabouts? Are they working? Are they married? And do they have families in the Philippines?
Yes, ma'am. They are still in the country.
Yes, we'd like any information on them if you don't have it on hand, even for 4782. Because that seems to be a large number, 42 Afghans under 4782.
The 4782, ma'am, on the 2021 year, the 31, this includes the 29 that arrived in September 8, 2021, but they all departed on December 20 of the same year.
Okay. Okay, there's also a large number of DFA-issued diplomats 28? Dito pa sila?
We have no data as of now, Madam Senator, but these are all issued by the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you. Tinatanong ko lang kasi kung baka naman, kung 137, kahit pa paano, may community na ng Afghans dito, kaya karapat-dapat lamang mapupunta sila sa Pilipinas. Pero, kung aapat lang at hindi pa natin alam kung nasan sila, palagay ko hindi community yun. Wala silang pag-uuwian, wala silang kamag-anak, wala silang kakilala. Yun lang ang tinatanong ko dahil nalilito ako kung bakit ang Pilipinas ang napili sa dinami-dami ng bansa. Samantalang alam natin, napakaraming Afghan sa ibang lugar sa Europa, napakadami sa Pakistan, karami-rami nila sa iba't ibang bahagi ng Asia. Yun lang. Anyone else who would like to add something, maybe from the AFP? Anything else that you'd like to share with the committee, please?
Ma'am, as far as the AP is concerned, ma'am, we are aligned with the statement of the Secretary of National Defense on this issue, ma'am. We already took into consideration our...
Yes, sir, Colonel. Which statement of the Secretary?
Everything, ma'am, and on the more specific level, ma'am, for us, for the AP, ma'am, we also join the manifestations of the NBI, ma'am, on the security level, ma'am. It would be more prudent to limit the movements and engagements of the applicants if ever this will be granted to the specific site, ma'am, for the protection of also of both parties, ma'am, the local population, also the applicants, ma'am, and also ma'am.
So I take it to mean that the DepEd and USEC-PUA are alone in their vehement objection?
I know. We also join the manifestation, ma'am. Also,
you can't join everyone. Pick a side.
Burn. You can join everyone, Colonel. Pick a side.
In as much as we welcome the Afghans because they are our brothers and sisters in faith,
Bangis talaga ng super ate.
discussions ongoing, we are not sure, not really on the protection of our citizens, but for the protection which might affect also, because one factor to be discussing also, as pointed out by Secretary Dodoro, is the type of accommodations that we have. These are mostly the religious and the cultural sensitivity of these people should be factored in also. So we join with the same position with the DepEd. We very opposed to in its entirety for allowing them to be housed in the Philippines.
Higit sa lahat, Attorney Guro, hindi ba dapat unahin ang housing sa Marawi City kesa sa dito? Okay, sino na?
Napakasimpleng-simple, di ba? Tama nga naman si Senator Amy.
I know you're brand new and you were privy to the earlier discussions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So, insofar as the department is concerned, this is now dependent on the legal opinion. Depending on the legal opinion given and issued by the DOJ. If they say it's legally permissible, then...
As a bar top notcher, what is your legal opinion?
Ma'am,
I won't let you to this. It's still unlegal.
No, ma'am, there are ways that it can be legally permissible, but we have to
Bloopers yung ano.
and then we have to bring on to the other side and be certain that they are ready, willing, and able to execute their undertakings. That we have to determine.
And if you have sanctions and means?
Madam Chair, perhaps
to obligate the same?
And it's reputational risk once again. I think that is the strongest sanction that one can give. To bring out a case just
I
like you have
don't
so
know that
expertly
the
done.
Americans have been very good at
But you have been very good,
keeping
Madam Chair.
together a reputation when they withdraw from
No,
war.
Madam Chair, it still hasn't progressed to that. And
Eh, si Secretary Gibulang kasi medyo matino mag-explain at kausap ni Manang.
to be educated personally on the various issues on that have arisen in this hearing. And moving forward, we will be really cognizant of this issue should the discussion, should the interagency position move forward.
Thank you very much, and perhaps the last word goes to my much older relative, Ambassador Romualdez, please.
Thank you very much, my younger relative. Anyway, well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for this. And I totally agree with Secretary Teodoro that whatever was brought out here, these are concerns that obviously we have to really look into. I just wanted to correct one point. There's never been any real formal negotiations or discussions with the State Department. Has just been following up with us here at the embassy in Washington, D.C. And of course, they're always anxious whether it is a yes or a no. And the sooner we do that, obviously, the better it is, because that way, by the way, it will also take them perhaps about 4 to 9 months, I understand, to be able to make sure that whatever facility that they will be using is precisely what we're concerned about, which is secure, everything that is needed for the board and lodging of these Afghanistan nationals will be in place. So that's why they're asking, following up with us, and it's up to us what we want to do with it, and whatever concerns we have, whatever we want to tell them, they're prepared to listen. If it's something that's possible, they'll do it. If not, then they go to another country for this.
Issue ng
Salamat,
Afghanistan
salamat.
refugees.
The worry, of course, is that elections in the United States are ratcheting up, and politicians everywhere make dreadful mistakes, whether in Washington, D.C. or in the Philippines. So, with that,
May laman na naman yung binitawan ni Manang.
we have not raised all the questions. We've raised some of the questions, but we've certainly raised the level of confusion. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
Happy weekend!
Grabe, Wait lang.
So ito katapos ng hearing tungkol dito sa pagpapasok ng
Hindi pagkain.
wala na signal.
Dadalhin mo?
Wait lang ha. Dadalhin mo.
No problem. You know our position, but we attend Kakain niyo yung food niyo? Hindi binigay?
So, syempre kasama natin dito sila Coach Jared. Ayan, Coach Jared. At syempre, ang pinag-iinitan ngayon.
Ha?
Sikat ngayon. Ang nire-report na naman. Ha?
Nakamas report ka po.
Nakamas report ka na ba? Kakaloko.
Kaya gumawa na ako ng bagong page. Kasi
mahirap na.
restricted na.
Nabaga-isa ka agad.
Bilis nila.
Ang bilis nila, no?
Correct.
Siyempre, People's Initiative, oh, andyan, oh.
Panalo ka, dapat ikaw yung
Alin. Hi. Yes.
Ito pa. Wala, ano eh, super talaga.
Ay, sinisigaw niya? Yung kinarga siya ng nanay niya? Kaya siya naging loyalista? Yung karga siya ng nanay niya? Oo, kasi ganun. Ako, nakalive pa ako, coach, ha? Okay lang yun. Yung pinagsising.
Yung nagpamana sa kanya, na hindi masaya pa ba siya? O babatukan siya? Kuya, anong nagkagawa mo? Ang layo mo na
Sabi nga kung buhay yun, baka inuramod yung pagmumukha niya. Tsaka yan na ginagawa niya, di ba? Wala na siya sa hulog. So, eto, nakaabang ang buong media team sa labas, no? Diba? So, siyempre, abang sila para kay Manang. Yan, nakaabang ang buong media sa labas.
Yeah.
So, si Sek Gibo medyo nauna na. Kaya, hindi na tayo nakapag... diba, mabilis. Pupuntahan na lang natin si Secretary Gibo sa kanyang opisina soon. Diba? Oo, sa labas tayo. Abangan natin si Manang. Doon tayo. Siyempre lang. Andito pa pala si Sek Gibo kausap si Senator Amy.
I watched
Hindi siya pasok sa banga, masarap siyang hampasin ng banga. Iba pa ba yan? Diyos ko, ang dami kasi nila, coach.
marami sa ganun talaga. Pag ako pa inaanohan na may trunk
Nalason.
Ganun talaga pag naano ka na, pag may infusion ka na.
Sabi ko nga,
may halo.
bayaran daw. Pwede ba ako mag-claim?
Ako nga, di ba, nagnakaw daw 1.5 million.
Pwede na ba ako mag-claim?
Wish ko
Bayaran
lang.
daw.
Wish ko lang na 1.5 million. Pwede pa ako.
Ay, sorry. So, our Defense Secretary is having a chat with, siyempre, Senator Amy, no? Sir, good afternoon.
Wala talaga. Zero talaga. Kasi may mga media pa dyan.
Sorry.
May interview pa.
Ano sasabihin ko na hindi ko pa habang silang lahat.
Yes, dun sa green team na ikaw na yan ha. Bartat na, certo. Huwag yung bibiruin to, Bart na certo.
Sek, pabati lang po sa Timpuyog Pilipinas po, nakalagod.
Mabati ako sa lahat ng miyembro ng Timpuyong Philippines. Kadagi amin ang kaming Timpuyong Philippines. Naktukablaan ti amin na kakabsat tayo ng Ilocano.
Salamat. Salamat po, Sek. Salamat po. Ingat po kayo.
Coach Jared.
Ay, sinabas po yata.
Picture naman po. Nakakalabo, baka magtambay lang ng matagal, hindi makaprove sa Amerika. Lahat ng Pilipino may experience dito sa American visa. Yung visa lang, pantulog sa kaya hirap-hirap. Minsan nabibinay. Hindi makaasahan na mabibigyan sila ng special immigrant visa. Ito special na, immigrant pa, sadyang visa galing sa Amerika. Ang pakialam ko dun sa UAE, sa Qatar, sa Middle East, nung nagkaroon ng process ng ganito, nandun lang sila sa loob ng US base. Hindi sila gumalaw ever. Pagkatapos, yung SIV nila o yung visa nila, pre-approved na. Kaya hindi na sila tumagal doon sa mga bansang yun. Kung bakit, hindi tinuloy na lamang nagkaroon. Sana tuloy-tuloy. Ang alam ko din, sa US, nagkaroon na ng ganito doon sa Virginia, sa National Convention Center. Pinoprocess naman nila, direkta. Yung taga-Kabul, lilipad sa Washington, dun na. Kung tutuusin, yun dapat ang mangyari. Mga empleyado naman ito ng Amerikano. Bakit hindi nila pangalagaan? Yan ang tanong. Baka may duda din sila. Kaya, mag-duda rin tayo at manigurado.
Personal experience.
Oh yes, I think no, I'm aware of the humanitarian parole provided by the United States government, and last year they declared that they would no longer be giving it to Afghans. So, ano yung special visa na sinasabing ibigay? Dahil ang alam namin, kung humanitarian parole ka lang, katulad ng pamilya ko, talagang wala ka naman status sa Amerika, wala kang residence, wala kang papeles, wala kang maski ano. Tapos kasuhan pa kami ng todo-todo. Yung ba talaga ang parole? Yes, ang kinatatakutan natin ay napakalabo. Unang-una, sino sila? Hindi naman naging empleyado ng Filipino government. Hindi natin nakilala yan. Ni minsan, nakita natin yung mga yan. Baka naman mababait at talagang inaapit. Tumulong tayo bilang refugee sila, no? Kung refugee sila. Pero ang sinasabi ngayon, hindi sila refugee. Empleyado sila ng mga Amerikano. Paano natin malalaman kung maayos ang mga tao to o kung nakakapraning ba, kung may sleeper cell dyan? At hindi maiiwasan kung naging mga empleyado ng Amerikano, hindi ba tayo magiging target ng mga pro-Al-Qaeda, mga ISIS sympathizers, at ang Pilipinas naman ang malagay sa Pilipinas? Nobody is disputing the open door policy. We always have open arms for all refugees throughout the world. But again, as has been repeated throughout the hearing, hindi sila refugee.
Or how do we go, where do we go from here?
Well, alam niyo, ang totoo, ang Pangulo, ang executive ay may malawakang kapangyarihan sa ayos ng ating foreign policy. Talagang nasa kamay ng Pangulo yan at hindi natin tinatanong o kine-question yan. Ang atin na lamang, lahat ng katanungan ng ating mga kababayan ay dapat sagutin. Dapat maliwanag ang proseso kung talagang negosasyon na ba ito, talaga bang sumang-ayon na tayo sa mga Amerikano, kaya pinag-uusapan na yung edukasyon, transportation, ang kanilang DOST. Abay, nakaka-nervous na, bakit hindi sinasabi sa atin? Pumayag na ba lahat ng LGUs, ang ayaw na ba ang Tarlac, ang Pampanga, ang Clark, ang Subic, at lahat ng iba't iba pang LGU na masasabi? No, I have discussed it. I've been away, and we've just discovered this. Nalaman lang natin na nagkaroon ng meeting at pinagkakahan namin Nakailang meeting na pala, hindi pa naman binubunyag sa publiko, hindi wala pang press statement, at sa pagkaakala ng DFA, wala daw negotiation. Pero yung ibang ahensya naman, sinasabi, negotiation na yun, kasi nagpulong-pulong na sila ng 3 beses mahigit.
Nandito na po yung mga security agencies, intelligence agencies ang nagsasabi na sila mismo meron po silang nakikitang possible threat dun sa pagpasok ng mga Afghan nationals. Hindi ba to enough reason para i-hold muna or talagang wag ayunan ng Pilipinas yung request ng US?
Well, tignan natin, nasa kamay ng Pangulo ang kapangyarihan mag-desisyon niya. Ang atin lamang magrekomenda at ibunyag sa publiko ang iba't ibang issue ng posibilidad na ito. Kailangan malaman natin lahat at masabi ng lahat kung ano yung kanilang pangamba, yung suggestion nila, baka meron namang maganda na mapupunta ito. Hindi natin kini-question kapag refugee, talagang okay. 4 na nga ang nag-apply na Afghan mula 2021. Matagal na po ito, panahon ni Presidente Quezon, yung tatay ko nag-umpisa din sa mga boat people, kasama ang United Nations dyan sa Vietnam nung kapanahunan ng withdrawal rin ng US doon. Wala tayong katanungan tungkol sa refugee. Parating open door, open arms welcome ang Pilipinas sa lahat ng pinagtataguyan sa mundo. Pero, ang klaro sa hapon ito, hindi refugee itong mga Afghang darating. Kaya pinangangambahan ng ating security groups na baka maging target ang Pilipinas ng mga kagalit or kaugnay ng Al-Qaeda, ng Taliban. Alam naman natin may pro-ISIS factions sa rebels sa Mindanao. Kaya importante na nagkakaintindihan tayo at alam natin ang mga pangamba ng bawat isa.
Last hearing na po ba ito?
Hindi ko pa alam. Depende kung anong development. Kasi mukhang hilaw pa. At napakaraming detalye, pati kung sino ang kausap natin dito, wala pang naka-assign, hindi alam maski ng DFA kung sino yung chief of mission ng Amerikano na gagawa ng vetting. Biglang naging Washington DC. Parang ang labo yata.
Ma'am, would you dissuade your brother from approving this?
I don't think I'm in any position to do so. I just feel a duty to the public and to the Senate to conduct a transparent and public hearing as thorough and comprehensively as possible. Dahil alam naman natin, ang liwaliwanag ng konstitusyon, ang desisyon tungkol sa foreign policy nasa kamay ng Pangulo. Right now also, napakalabo ng sitwasyon. Sinasabi nila, hindi refugee, non-immigrant. So ano ang visa nila habang nasa Pilipinas? Parang malabo pa, hindi pa klaro kung ano sila, kung empleyado sila ng Amerikano, hindi dapat sa Amerikano na sila. Paano naman kung nandito sila sa Pilipinas? Kung magkaroon ng aksidente, madamay sila dito sa Pilipinas, pananagutan ba natin yan? Kung madamay ang Pilipino at binira ang Pilipinas dahil sa kanila, paano naman tayo? Paano natin tatanggol ang sarili? Yun lamang ang kinakailangan pag-usapan. Ang mahirap, hanggang hindi ako nag-file noong June 8, nung aking resolusyon, ni minsan natin narinig ito. Ngayon, alam na ng lahat at sana talagang alamin natin ang mga detalye para yung pinakamagandang kaayusan ang gawin para sa Pilipinas.
So, salamat sa pagsama mga Kachonsky. Thank you very much.
Hindi sila refugee, kaya irrelevant yun.
Parang kanina pa tayo nakabidyo.
Mm-hmm.